Focusing on matters economy here in the country, looking into the decision by President Uhuru Kenyatta to reopen the economy during the times of COVID-19. We are having Dr. Paul Gashenja, who is from Kenyatta University School of Economics, to sort of look into the issues of reviving the economy in the new normal. Welcome, Dr. Paul Gashenja.
Thank you, Erin.
All right, first things first, let us look at the decision to reopen the economy. From where you sit, was it the wise decision at this particular time that you're facing the pandemic?
I read it's a very delicate balance because we have an economy to take care of, we have people to take care of. And opening the economy is one way of taking care of the people. Besides health, we need to feed them and so on. And it is possible to open the economy and still remain healthy as long as we make we make our minds and we make that decision. So it was a wise decision because there was no other way out of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, people have talked about the issue of reopening the economy. What are some of the models of growth that Kenya as a nation will face? People have come with different models, of course, to explain what we should expect. Given that you have looked into matters of economy, what is the probable, model of growth that we'll have as a country?
Let me say there are about 5 propagated models of growth, ranging from very optimistic ones to very pessimistic ones. There's one that seems to work naturally. It's called the U model, where the pandemic brings the economy down, then we take a little bit of time down there and then recover. It's a U shape. But patterns in the world are bringing something, sort of another model. It's not a new one. It's one of the 5 models. It's called a W model, a W, where we are saying we have the economy goes down from the trajectory, hits a bottom, then recovers when we open the economy, but immediately before we resume, we recover fully, another lockdown comes. So it looks like you are down, then you go up, and then before you know it, you are down again, and then you really open later. So it is the model that seems to be actually coming out from the evidence we have in the world, and we only pray that it's not going to be in Kenya, because we have just opened, so we are on the first part of the W.
Yeah.
We hope we are not going to go down the other one. So it just remains not really a V, because W is made of 2 V's. So,
yeah.
But it's basically like a 1 U, whereby we go down, we slowly recover, and we are not like we pray that we are not going to have another round of the pandemic that takes us down to take a W shape.
All right. I've read from what you've said, I've read some sort of optimistic that you do not expect us to have some sort of a second wave of infections. But looking at how the country has handled the pandemic and how we are reporting the numbers, do you think that we might have a second wave of infections here in the country?
Maybe this is basically about feelings, and maybe what we see from the patterns we are seeing. So far so good, and the president put it very clearly that he's going to, they are assessing and seeing what is happening, and likely that if people are not disciplined, definitely there's going to be a lockdown. So I think the issue is that we are going to watch, the government is watching keenly, so that before we have another outburst of another pandemic, measures are taken so that you simply say lockdown before it becomes serious. But we are hopeful, and also maybe from my own little understanding is that there is what they are calling the herd immunity, and probably as people get exposed to this disease, there is immunity growing, and people are going to survive it. They are going to learn how to live with the disease, because the virus is not just about to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's an
so
endemic.
we better learn how to live with it. So for me, I pray that Kenyans behave like you were told to do, keep distancing and all the protocols that have been given to us, so that at least we maintain where we are. The numbers, maybe infections get less and less, but for sure we know that they're not getting any less, because we know there has been that spread. And they are very minimal, and we don't have that capacity to keep doing mass testing. They are only doing targeted testing. So when we do mass testing, of course we will get shocking numbers. But the idea is this, that those numbers are bound to come. And I mean, to me, that is going to be good because first of all, we are overcoming the fear of the disease, and as we try to take care and watch over those protocols, we are going to get used to it. We are going to have our immunity boosted, so that apart from those who are very vulnerable, those who are predisposed to other conditions, and the young ones, then I think because the generation in Africa, in Kenya specifically, is the young people, we are able to stand against it, and I'm sure we are going to see a success, a success story, hopefully.
Yeah, you being optimistic there, but we cannot talk about economic growth without looking into the different aspects that help to propel the economy or to grow the economy forward, which include the agricultural sector. Now, the problem has been the issue of, given that before even COVID-19 came into place, we had the locust here in the country, which continues to be a scourge, which has really affected the agricultural sector. It's just that COVID-19 has taken the center stage. We're not seeing the effects of locust in the agricultural sector. Now, you looking at it, do you think at this particular time the agricultural sector has been supported to propel forward at this particular time we're having the pandemic?
I think what has happened is that attention has shifted, away, so that now all government's attention is basically on COVID.
Yeah.
It's not that we have forgotten the agricultural sector. And agricultural sectors is one of the sectors that is actually affected by factors really outside COVID.
Yeah.
In fact, it was if there is anything, it had a slow growth even before COVID came in, because the factors that affect agriculture are completely different. There are basically this is also natural. We can say it's natural, but there are also those natural factors that rainfall, factors beyond our control, that have been affecting the agriculture sector. But I think because of the resources, the constraint, because of constraint in terms of resources by government, attention has not been given. Due attention has not been given to the agriculture sector, apart from a small bits and pieces from the stimulus package, through the horticultural and the boost of the farmers through some support of the 3 billion and so on. But I would say priority now is on handling the disease and trying to have people survive during this period. So I don't think I wouldn't blame anybody for not giving the agriculture sector that due attention, because it is not the priority now. And actually the factors that affect agriculture are not basically COVID related. So I think we can still continue with agriculture, either up or down, even with COVID. Yeah.
All right. Now, moving away from agricultural sector, looking into tourism, of course, that has been affected due to the ban of flights, but now we're having domestic flights. We're expecting that from 1st August we'll have, JKA now being operational. Flights are moving out, international flights, so to speak. But now the tourism sector has been somewhat greatly affected, to a point that many have questioned whether it can really be able to revive and make profit during this particular new normal. Do you see the strategies put in place by the government really helping the sector, stand up, given that it has employed a lot of people and it is one of the main sectors that we get our taxes and we get income from?
Okay, the tourism sector is actually one among the biggest, foreign exchange earners for this nation, and of course this has hit every country because of the lockdown and the crumbling down of the international travels. And not only that, the lockdown within, that even as Kenyans, you're not able to move around, the way you used to do. So tourism has been affected both domestically and internationally. And one other thing you need to understand is that sector is so much dependent on the incomes of the people. People are already, priority now cannot be tourism, even locally, like we have opened domestic flights. That was basically to necessitate movement to places of work, moving from one country to the other to work. But not really to boost tourism for now, because people don't have the income to spend on tourism, because it is like it is taken to be a luxury.
And it's all about survival right now.
It is not a priority. When you make your list of priorities, touring and going to Mombasa to the beach may not be. In fact, you plan for it. I will plan in January for my family to go in December because it is good, but I need to time to plan because there are many other priorities. So that actually makes that sector very vulnerable in the sense that it may actually be the last or among the last sectors to recover. Because domestically, before people are up again and have extra income to spend on it, and before we can now talk about free movement, because again it is dependent on tourists coming from all over the country. Some of those tourist destinations, I mean, to some of those people who come, who are our tourists, are also on lockdown. You know, are also suppressed in terms of income, so they don't have any savings. And you know, the culture of these people in the West, for example, because they're the main tourists we get, they also save for a long period of time. A family saves for a long period to be in Kenya for this period of time, in 2 years to come or 5 years to come. So they save for a long time. And this pandemic has really brought people down in terms of their capacity and in terms of their affordability, in terms of affording this kind of luxuries. So it is going to be a sector that recovers after others recover.
So we will be talking about how maybe now Kenya will be able to revive its economy. One of the major sectors, which is agriculture and tourism, are greatly affected. But before that, let us talk about the small and medium enterprises, which are a majority of Kenyans are mainly in that particular sector. But they have been affected, and I'll give you an example. For example, in Gikombo market, they are lamenting that the government banned imports. They're talking about reopening the economy, yet for them, they don't even understand how they'll be able to work without having the bales which they sell to be able to get income, which now raises the question of how possible the government has supported the SMEs if some of the measures put in place are sort of inhibiting their work. Do you think what the government has done right now is enough to revive that particular sector, which many Kenyans depend on, especially the middle income earners?
I would say not enough. The government has tried to do it, but not enough. There are also some things we are not also able to understand, because the moment you want to bring up that sector, like Gikomba is one of the biggest markets in East Africa actually, and we have seen even this morning. Actually, this morning there were last night. There were people there who were bringing down businesses. I don't know whether you've heard about it.
Yeah, I have.
Actually, just a few hours ago. So you look at this kind of stimulus we are giving that sector, but then look at some of the actions that the same actors are taking. Probably it is you see. I would say public good may supersede any other, because maybe if they say they want to build a road here, and there are so many small enterprises around the road, and you have to remove them because of the bigger good of the economy. But then, overall, we are supposed to see, and we have seen that, at least a bit of, even in the 8-point stimulus program by government, majorly there was something from by SME, into SMEs in terms of giving them some seed capital that is going to be channeled to them so they can actually revive and come back. We have also seen a lot of in the stimulus program, like in the manufacturing sector, a lot of fabrication, using the local labor, using the local materials, just to ensure that those people have retro income to also start other small things. But far and wide, and of course we also saw earlier about the VAT and those other tax incentives. The government has tried to do it, but it's not enough. Definitely, because 80%, actually that sector actually supports almost 80% of this economy, the informal sector. So the government is trying to do what they can, but I would say it's not enough.
All right. Now you've hinted about the 8-point stimulus plan that included 53.7 billion to sort of revive the economy and sort of jumpstart the economy, but experts have come out to say that the money is too little to jumpstart the economy, yet President Uhuru Kenyatta and of course his advisors in the National Treasury have somewhat been positive that that particular stimulus plan will work. What can you read from that particular plan that the government has?
Of course, people are entitled to different opinions, and all those opinions are good, but it looks at how it depends on how you look at it. For me, when you talk about a stimulus program, that word to stimulate, it is to stimulate, it is not to give.
All right.
It's not to give. There's something called a multiplier effect, or what you call the spillover effect, that if you inject a little money here, it's likely to bring out much more than the little you injected. And that's basically how government works. It injects a little money here, but because of the spillover effects, because of what they call the multiplier effect, the effect is much more than that little. And that is basically the aim of that kind of a stimulus that you're saying. For example, you have, let's say the kazi kwa vijana.
Yeah.
You look at it this way, that there's 10 billion that's given to that, and engaging about 200,000 youths in the country. That on average is about 50,000 shillings per person. The issue is not that 50,000 shillings. This is what will that 50,000 do.
Right.
What do that 50,000 do? And when you have those kazi kwa vijana and you have all those people there, they are feeding from a mama boga somewhere.
Yeah.
That is able to bring, that money moves to that mama boga. The idea is that you inject a little money here, but it's likely to flow. So in other words, when you talk about the stimulus program, you have to have, you are putting money in a system that is able to translate that money to affect more people than just the little I give you little, but I know by giving you, you will benefit 5 more people. So basically, the money cannot be enough, cannot be said 3.7 billion shillings. Is peanuts, definitely. It looks very little, but it can achieve something significant if well spent and well targeted.
So from where you read is, what the president wanted to do is not to totally jumpstart the economy, but of course to affect a small number of groups, because what we have seen, even from the stimulus plan, we have had the group of youth, the unemployed. Of course, you've talked about kazi mtaani, looking into the health sector and some of the sectors, small sectors that have been affected. So the end point was not to totally affect all, but a small group of people.
Yes. Just to target, like for example, if you say you want to go, you target the health sector and you want to fabricate beds, for example, for the wards. The idea is not about the beds. It is good because the beds will maybe when we are overwhelmed by this COVID and those kind of things, they are beds and there are places for people to rest. But the idea is not that. That this fabricated beds is using local labor. That you've employed 1,000 young men who are able to benefit to make these beds. These 1,000 young men have families behind them. They're able to spend that money in a kinyozi. Kinyozi comes up. The idea is that the word is to stimulate. That is just like you start the car. When you just put the key and you start in, the whole engine moves.
All right.
So it's basically not buying the whole car. It's just starting the car and enabling it to start moving. So basically it's about stimulating, really not about payment.
All right.
Yeah, because the 3 billion, you cannot pay anybody.
It will be really a small amount of money looking at the whole lot of us.
Exactly.
As we wind up, we have talked about the agriculture and the tourism sector, which has been affected, and we have accepted that they will take time before they revive. So what are some of the steps the government should do to revive the economy at this particular time, so that we don't remain with what some are calling the stagnant economy? So what are some of the ropes the government should pull to be able to jumpstart the economy during this particular time of the pandemic?
Okay, how the government works is to trigger economic activity. As I say, it is not really to bring in money, but it's basically to trigger and put system in place to support economic activity. And economic activity is by the masses of the people. So basically what the government needs to do, of course, is to target to start encouraging, like we are doing now, like we are now talking about the youth, and making them productive. Because as we speak now, it is basically survival. It is survival. Growth of the economy and trying to bring it back is basically gradual, and it is going to be sector by sector. But the idea, the wisdom now is to target on those sectors that act as an engine to grow. First of all, people need money. So when you support these young men, you expect also that they also invest and look at opportunities they can have in agriculture, because it is not COVID related. In fact, where we produce most of the agriculture sector is in the rural areas, where COVID has not hit hard. So there's no excuse. But if you but with the little money, because of the lack of engagement of the majority of the young people, so they are idle, and crime is likely to, of course, to increase. But when you engage them, And because they are many, the little you give each one of them is able to be multiplied because they have other activities to do. When they earn that income, I also, of course, expect that when they earn that income, it is used productively because it can still be earned, but not productively.
Yeah.
But the idea is this. It is trying now to put life back, you know, to the most important sectors now. As we say, agriculture is one of them. And basically, the government is simply trying to encourage and try to see people to see opportunities in the agricultural sector, but also, of course, in terms of the transport industry, especially because you don't even go for big things like tourism. Don't go for big things like manufacturing. Yes, but now local manufacturing. What you call, what you call, is basically small the industrialization is basically the small scale level. But even the sectors that the SMEs. That is where life is. That's where life is. And even the transport industry, you can imagine how many young men had been employed by the matatu industry. And you can imagine where they went. You can imagine the owners of those matatus, the employees, and there are very many in this country, young people who are employed by that industry, either directly or indirectly, because in those stages, there are people who feed them. There was nobody to feed at this time. So we are trying to say that's why the president is very keen in opening the economy, because now, at least when you now unlock Nairobi, there is transports, you know, the movement begins and life comes again, because those people who had been employed there, majority of them will get back to the industry. Some may have forgotten about it, may have looked for something else to do, but the idea is the little things that people used to do every day to earn a living is what should be the target. Before we talk about the big stories about the economy. Because the economy is made up of me and you. We are able to trigger small economic activities. If I was earning, if I had a kinyozi somewhere, I'm back because there's, you know, a lockdown, but observing all the protocols. Lockdown is open, observe the protocols, start now getting customers. The idea is that trigger those small economic activities, because that is basically what supports, that is the base of the economy. Before we talk about what foreigners bring in and those kind of things, it is targeting the common man. That small scale business there. If you can target on that and try to make sure that life comes back, that is how life starts coming in the economy, because there is now what we call effective demand. People have income. Now I can demand a mutuba. I will go to Ikoba to buy one. I can. People, you know, people are not even able to afford a haircut. Or a salon, or even buying an extra piece. So the idea is that when your activities start coming up and you have some little income, you go to a kinyozi. That is income to the kinyozi person.
Of course.
You earned it from doing some activities somewhere. So the idea is not even focusing on big things, but focusing on the small scale sector and making sure that you trigger life back into the economy through making that sector vibrant.
Because now it is the majority of the people are in that particular sector.
Exactly. That is where the majority is.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Paul Gashanja, of course, for creating a perspective when it comes to issue of economy and reviving the economy. It is a discussion, of course, that we can elaborate from time to time, looking at how things will be, maybe in the next 1 month and in the next 2 months. We'll be looking at how things are coming into perspective.
Thank you, Erin. Thank you for having me.
That has been Dr. Paul Gashanja from Kenyatta University School of Economics, of course, bringing a perspective on what should be done to revive the economy in this particular new normal. He says the government should focus on the small-scale traders and the small and medium enterprises, since they combat 80% of the people here in Kenya when it comes to looking into things in matters economy. But of concern should be that business will not have anyone to run if people are not alive to turn into those particular business, which is the message from the government that we should adhere to the measures put in place to combat COVID-19. We are taking a short break, but we'll be back in a moment. Do stay tuned.